Ready?
Oh, welcome, guys.
Hey, welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Another edition of the industry. How we doing?
How's everybody doing today?
Yeah, how's everybody out there? I'm the dog. That's Kat over there.
And you got the Madman Mike sitting over here.
And we'll be getting to our special guest here in just a moment. We've got some announcements we're going to do first, but glad you're hanging out with us. And, okay, Mike, I'm going to let you go first.
All right. Well, we're going to mention what's happening. We've got a few things happening in the area, and we'd like, if you have things happening, we'd like you to get in and let us know what's going on so that we can mention it on the air.
Yeah, this is going to become like a regular thing where we mention all the different events that are happening over the weekend and throughout the week with entertainment.
And next week as well.
Yeah.
Today we have a special guest that we're going to get to here in a minute, as he was saying. In the coming weeks, we're going to have a promoter, J.J. Garcia. We're going to have
nice.
we're going to have the promoter for the River Run local here. Larry Topping is going to be with us next week on the show.
If you guys don't know who Larry Topping is, you're living under a rock in this town.
Yeah,
he's been really active the past few years. This guy's in charge and large.
And then here in a couple of weeks, I've also got lined up John Carl Agobian. We were talking last night. He's got a show coming up. I believe it's in May, but he'll probably correct me on that. We'll get the actual dates where we're going to have 51 bands in a 3-day show at the park in Bullhead City. Oh yeah, it's huge.
Bullhead is coming back to life.
51 bands in one weekend or one day.
Oh yeah, no, it's 3 days. It's a three-day show. They're going to fence the park off. It's going to be nice. They're going to have vendors,
That's
drinks
where the
and everything.
Corn Fest is, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be. I'm not sure. I'll get the information. Yeah, I think it's going to be the other one on Riverview.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another one. Wow.
The other one.
Nice.
I'm gonna get into this, and I'm probably gonna be taken off because I've got a little head cold going, and I don't want to spread it around to these guys here. You guys are all safe because you're out far away, like the guys working at the mine right now. I told you we'd be on, and there's a mention for you. How's it going,
guys? At the mine, that's what you get.
Golden Vertex, yeah, they're out there working.
At the mine?
They said, Mike, we'll be listening. They love K-Talks. They listen to it all the time. It's there's some good shows going on there, and then you've got the industry show that we're putting on. And we've got a lot of stuff that's going to be going on this show. So you guys stay tuned with us every week. From 3 till 6 in Nevada, California time, and then you've got 4 to 7 Arizona time.
Yeah.
At least until that funny time thing happens again. Then it'll all be the same time again.
Well, will have the same time in Arizona. All the time.
We used to be special.
All right. I was talking to the owner of Mojave Valley Raceway at 2750 East Laguna Road. Next week, they're going to have 2 nights of racing, and it's going to be the 3rd annual Bill and Shirley Myers Memorial. And they're going to have a lot of stuff going on, good eats, good food, good racing. And that's coming up next weekend.
Do you happen to know how much it is to get into the races?
I think it's about $10 or $12.
Oh, that ain't bad.
Yeah,
that's good family entertainment.
They're going to have a lot of things going on. It's an annual thing that they do. So I'm going to try to get Dan Perry III on here, and he's one of our local racers. Let's see if he answers. Yeah, hey Dan, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Oh, all right. You're out in Vegas right now, right?
Yes, sir. We're up at the Las Vegas dirt track.
Yep. All right.
We're at the Working Man Nationals.
All right. Sounds good. Dan, I'm their biggest sponsor. I love being sponsoring their car and stuff. They're a really good race team. You guys, you've been second in points overall a few times.
Yeah, I think last year we finished, after we blew a motor and had some other troubles, I think we finished 4th in points. And then the year before that, we finished 2nd in points.
Yeah, I love seeing them pictures of you holding the trophy, man. The checker flag, that's awesome
Those are
stuff.
always the best ones.
Hell yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming on. What exactly are you guys doing tonight?
Tonight, I'm pitting for my good buddy Brady Glad. He's another guy that runs down to Mojave quite a bit, and he lives up in Vegas now. So
All right.
he's letting me borrow his motor until I get mine back. So I figured it was a nice enough deal to come up and help him out since he's helping me out so much.
Right. Awesome.
So he's got a heat race tonight, and then the big final show for tonight, and then the weekend will be done, and then we'll get him geared up to come down to Mojave for the 2-day show next weekend.
And that's what we were just talking about as well, you know. So you'll be racing both nights there or just the one?
Oh, Mojave, yep, we'll be racing Friday night and Saturday night.
Right. All right. Now, your car number, I know it, but tell the people.
Number 59.
Car number 59, Dan Perry III. One hell of a racer, man. He puts on a great show. I love watching him race.
One of these days when you're down here local and in the area for a while, we'd love to have you on the show. Just come into the station.
Yep.
What was that? I couldn't hear that one very well.
Oh, I said next time you're in town, if you have a chance, we'd love to have you come down and be on the show live in the station.
Yeah, no, that would be sweet.
All right, we'll get that worked out. And once again, we've got a promoter, JJ Garcia. He's a national act promoter, and he's working with a lot of people and big names. Larry Topping will be in here next week. I just confirmed that, and he'll be talking about the River Run coming up in the end of April. A great community event, as well as John Carl Agobian. He's got 51 bands lined up for a show coming up. Yeah, 3-day event. It's going to be great. And then tonight, the one thing I was able to pick up, we have, it doesn't have the place on here. We've got the Ghostwood Murder CD release party.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, Hardyville Stranglers.
Yeah, that's up in Kingman. And is it Sportsman? I think it's Sporties.
Yeah, Sportsman's Bar, yeah. And that's Frank's band.
Right, yeah.
That's his new
Frank
band.
Voodoo.
Yeah, from Voodoo Glow Skulls.
Yeah, buddy.
And Frank's got his band Hardyville Stranglers that'll be there, and then we have the Love Bombs, and that's the all-girl band, the punk band.
All-female punk band. Yeah.
I went and watched them a week or so ago, and they were pretty
I heard
good.
they're pretty good.
Oh yeah, lots of energy there. That's at 8 p.m. tonight at the.
Cool.
What was the name of it?
Sportsman.
Sportsman Bar. I printed it out, and it's cut off the top. Really good stuff, right? All right,
cool.
Dan. Well, we thank you for talking with us, and
appreciate it.
you guys.
Thank
Good
you guys
luck.
for having me. This was fun. It's a good deal. I definitely want to come in and get on the show with you guys.
That'd be great.
That'd be a blast.
All right, and he'll be racing next week at the Mojave Valley Raceway at 2750 East Laguna Road, Friday the 17th and Saturday the 18th, and the gates open at 5. The races start at 6, and there's going to be a lot more going on.
Well, there you go.
So you guys should
Good
get
show.
out
There's
there.
gonna be a lot of good guys there, so it'll really test how we're doing against other than the local guys.
Yep. All right, Dan. Well, thanks for spending a little time with us. It was good to hear from you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you guys for having me. That was good.
Have a
All
good
right,
one.
man. All right.
All
Bye.
right, bye.
Now you guys are listening to The Industry on K-Talks Radio.
Yeah.
And what have
Yeah.
we got? Some numbers if you guys want to call in. We've got toll-free, 855-586-9134. Local, 760-326-4545. 928-788-0003.
All
There
right.
you go. Okay, real quick, if you guys want to watch us online, we are on YouTube live, and there's a live video,
Yeah.
and that's up at youtube.com. The
Fixes in Entertainment.
Entertainment. There you go.
Yeah, and I have a couple other shows for tonight. If you guys are looking for something else to do, maybe a little variety. Rock band Roadwork is rocking at the Old Town Saloon in Laughlin from 9 to 12 p.m. Then we have Nitro Express at the Tropicana in Laughlin. That's country music from 7 to midnight. And Long Time Coming at the Moose Lodge in Bullhead City from 5 to 9 p.m. And that's another classic rock. band. So if you guys are looking for something to do in the area, there's lots of options, a lot of entertainment.
Yeah. It's getting around to that time of year where there's a lot more stuff going on the weekends too.
Oh yeah.
It's as the weather's getting nicer. If you like 50-mile-an-hour winds, the weather's getting nicer.
Now we're going to have a number here that that we're going to put out on the air every week, so that if you have a venue or you have a show that you're doing that week or in the following weeks, we need you to let us know. But I think we're gonna be going to a commercial break here, and then we'll get right back at it. You're listening to K Talks, the Industry Show.
You're getting good at this, Mike. We're going to have to keep you around.
Thank you.
Yeah. You guys are listening to The Industry, and we are also online at YouTube. The Fix is in Entertainment.
1340 AM and 92.9 FM.
The Tri-States Talk later.
K Talks.
And welcome back to The Industry.
Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back, everyone.
How you guys doing today? It's a nice, beautiful Saturday afternoon out there in the Tri-State.
How you doing?
All right, I hope you're doing well. I've got a head cold here.
Hope you're doing better than Mike.
Yeah.
That was
Just keep it to yourself.
I wasn't expecting to hear me singing on the radio again.
Oh yeah, of course you weren't.
That was a song that I wrote the lyrics to. It's called "Don't Let Them Take You There."
Yeah.
And that's a band that we don't have a name for yet. We had Paul on the keyboards, Steve on drums.
Johnny Barnes wrote it.
Johnny Barnes wrote the instrumental. Yep.
Yep.
And
good guitars.
Earl on bass. Yeah.
And that's what you call a working demo or a session demo. That's something where we're still putting everything together and trying to piece things together. So it's not really what you would call a mix yet. So
Yeah, but Paul, now not only do they get to hear the Madman Mike's voice, but they also got to hear him sing.
there you go.
Woohoo!
Bonus double.
Well, we have with us today Mr. Joey Leone. Paul, you want to mention a little bit about him?
Yes, we do. I mean, I don't even know where to start with Joey. I mean, Joey's been around the music scene for as long as the music scene's been around. He's a world-class music historian, does tours and TED Talks and all that fun stuff, and does music clinics, and he's also a world-class blues musician. He's played with some of the best people out there, but the best part is, and I know most of the kids are going to get this one right away, but he's also a crime boss.
Alleged.
That's right, alleged crime boss. So yeah, why don't we move the mic over there to Joey?
Oh, I get the mic now.
Yeah, and now
there
we're
you
going to
go.
put you on the
Mike gave
spot.
you his
man.
I got
How you
Mike's
doing?
mic.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
I got Mike's mic.
Ah,
Now, do I have to be mad, or can I take it down a notch between mad and
You
insane?
can be mad, but I'm sure you're mad about the game.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
But
I'm not mad.
before we get to anything here, there's already somebody up in the chat room, Andrew Fisher. We miss you in Killington. It's not the same without you.
Oh, thank you. This is my guy, man. Thank
That's
you.
your boy?
Nice. Yeah, well, you play in one place for 20-something years. You meet a lot of people, you make a lot of friends, and rarely musicians get a chance to have a steady gig for 25 years in one place. So that, I made a lot of good friends, man.
I've seen a lot of your posts on Facebook. They come through my feed quite regularly. And I've always wondered, is Killington an actual place, or was that like a culture, like a scene, like Haight-Ashbury or something?
A little of both. No, Killington is a ski mountain in Vermont. It's the biggest ski mountain in the East Coast. It's in central Vermont. But Killington was unique. A lot of ski areas, especially in the East, have like a music scene, but Killington was really kind of notorious for their music scene. Many years ago, a good friend of mine, Frank Chase, a great New Orleans piano player, coined the phrase Bourbon Street North. So there was bands everywhere, musicians everywhere, really high-quality cats. And I come in there, from New York and, moving to Vermont with my family, and fell into this kind of scene that was there. And then all of a sudden I had to kind of make up my mind on what kind of music I was going to play. Because at first I was playing just strictly like blues and rhythm and blues, which really didn't, people were digging it, but really when I started doing the classic rock stuff, that was kind of like the beginning of it all.
Yeah. That's always the draw.
In a way, I've never, in all my 45 years of doing music, I've never played music I didn't like.
Well, there you go. There you go. Okay, Mike is making
Mike.
his exit. See you, Mike. Hope you feel better, man.
peace out, Mike. Feel better.
We'll talk to you all next week.
Yeah.
Y'all come back now here?
Yeah.
Y'all
right.
come back now. Yeah, you can scoot over and get comfortable now.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't have cooties either.
No, it's all right. I'll get the mic flu, no problem. So,
Get you better on camera here.
oh yeah, all right.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
So your homies can see you better.
Yeah, that's a little bit more cozy on camera, which
Yes.
we got to do that, If you guys are watching online, or if you're not watching online, you should be. How about I put it that way? Head over to youtube.com and check out the Fixes in Entertainment. You can find the whole thing going on live on video. Back to Joey. I didn't mean to interrupt your thought there. We were just getting into Killington here.
Yeah.
Did you have to break in, and you were the outside guy for a long time, and all that kind of thing? And
I'm definitely, but it was a process that I had to kind of learn to embrace because, like I said, I had never really had like a house gig like on that level before. And so when I first came to Vermont and started playing, I was playing at like 5 different mountains and driving around in the winter in Vermont, playing, sometimes 3 shows a day.
Wow.
And those are 3 sets apiece, so that's like 9 sets a day on a Saturday and stuff. So But then when Killington started to really, become part of like my reputation, it was great because I didn't live too far from it. It also was the closest mountain to my house. It was only a half hour from where I lived, but it seemed like the environment was there. There were guys like Frank Chase and the Bobby Darling Show and Donnie Gray and a lot of really good musicians who were playing there, who kind of blazed this path. I mean, music was big in the Killington from the late 60s. So I get there in the early 90s, and it was kind of like almost, he's the new guy.
Yeah.
So I benefited greatly from that. And then the fact that I really kind of tried to play music that I wanted to play, that people wanted to hear, that other cats really weren't doing that much of. And then I get a house gig at a place called the Santa Fe Steakhouse, which a lot of my friends and fans remember that place. It was a notorious place, the Santa Fe Steakhouse. And we had the house gig there. And the owner, when Frank Chase left, said to me, he wanted me to play there 5 nights a week. And, of course, me trying to make a name for myself, of course, but I'm still, a maniac.
Yeah.
And I say, well, I'd like to do 5 nights a week, 5 different styles of music. And he was like, okay, well, as long as I can put your name on the marquee, because I was starting to get a good following then. So it was one night acoustic, one night the power trio, one night my horn band with a full horn section playing a totally different set list than the other band. And then we did a blues night, which was just strictly blues. And then the other night was the jazz night. And I brought in some of the best jazz musicians in Vermont and sat there with my little archtop in fear that they would call tunes that I didn't really know. And that was a great experience. I think it was like 11 years of Sunday night blues.
Man.
I mean, Sunday night jazz and the Monday blues. So it was a great experience. And, I'm very grateful to the owners of the clubs that put me there. And then, of course, the mountain itself, because in Killington, you'd play the daytime at the Base Lodge between 2 and 5, say.
Okay.
Then you'd have a couple of hours off and then play right down the road at one of the nightclubs.
Oh, wow.
And
Busy
that was
guy.
Yeah, it was 25 years of that.
What can I say? But I mean, I'm just jealous of that kind of an experience because I come from a classical background. I took classical piano for 12 years. My regimen is so rigid. I read music, I play the music, I play what I read, and it took me so long to figure out how to jam, how to just riff, how to just comp. And you're doing that every day of your life for 25 years. I mean,
Well, when you talk about jamming, when I first started, I was a bass player, first of all. I played bass for many years before I picked up the guitar. But when I played bass, in my early bands in Brooklyn, jamming was like from the Cream and the Allman Brothers. We're talking early 70s, guys like me and my friend Jimmy Agnello and a lot of great musicians in Brooklyn I played with. We would do a show, like a block party or a CYO show, and it would be like 10 tunes for the entire night. I mean, it was like we were jamming constantly. And then I'd go in the studio with like my friends. There was no songs. Oh, I got this riff on the bass. Or the drummer would say, I got this groove. And we would go on it. That creative process of being able to think on the fly ended up years later when I got a job working in advertising and doing music for commercials and doing movie soundtracks.
Oh, that had to be such a benefit. Yeah.
Just to be able to go in the studio and go, I need to come up with 30 seconds of interesting music. I mean, that was... Right. I wouldn't say it was a piece of cake, but it was definitely, start with a good drum beat or start with a good bass line. I personally think that my creative process in the studio always started with the drums and the bass.
Yes, sir.
Drums and bass.
Same here.
The rhythmic foundation, the somewhat melodic foundation, and then, overdub the keyboards, overdubs the guitars. It
gives you something to build on, yeah.
Yeah, so especially when doing instrumental music. And then I did... part of the Grand Theft Auto genus really for me was the reputation I had because I did the soundtrack to like 50 adult movies.
Oh, wow.
So in the 80s when they were still paying good money and it was actually shot on real film. This was before it went to Super Beta. Super Beta was the first format that went after film. They were still shooting movies in the mid 80s. And believe it or not, my cousin owned one of the biggest movie companies that did adult movies.
Oh, wow.
So I'm in his studio one day, and he's having a fight with the guy that's the music producer.
Uh-huh.
And he practically almost chokes the guy to death because the guy was robbing him. And my cousin was the type of guy you'd want to rob. So he says, you're fired, get out of here. And he goes, well, who are you going to get to produce the movie? He goes, my nephew. And he points at me, and the guy leaves, and I tell my cousin, how much does it pay? He goes, I'm paying that jerk $3,500 a movie. I said, I'll take it.
Sold.
And it was a funny thing. I had a lot of really good musician friends. Nobody wanted to take $1 to do an adult movie.
Sure.
Everybody wanted, maybe I could go on the set, like meet some of the actors and actresses and stuff. But anyway, that thing turned into getting a break with the great George Lois, who was a advertising icon. One of the guys they formed Mad Men after.
Oh, really?
Yeah, George Lois, famous
Nice.
advertising guy, best friends of Bob Dylan and all this other stuff. By a freak accident, which is I won't go into, but it was a freak accident that I got to work for him, and then I started to do commercials, and then before you know it, I'm doing national commercials at 27 years old.
Wow, dude.
And going against the biggest jingle companies in New York with my 4-track demo studio in my basement, or a Casio, an SM7,
Yes.
a 58, a Spring Reverb unit, and a Prophet 5 synthesizer.
Wow.
Oh, I wish I would. Oh, man, the Prophet 5.
Oh.
Woo! All right, guys,
Interesting
we're
stuff right
getting
there.
ready to go out to break. We'll be back after this with more from Joey
Hey,
Leone.
now.
Yeah.
Hey now, so stick around.
Coal black hair, baby blue eyes. You wouldn't know the devil if she came in disguise. Sitting in the corner with a wicked grin. She'll take the soul of the man just because it's a sin. Don't trust a woman. Long black dress and a coupe de ville. She'll get you in the back, man, just to give you a thrill. There's a little price to pay she didn't tell you about. If you're getting that call, man, you ain't getting out.
Never trust a woman in a black Cadillac.
Right.
Never, never, never. I don't know. What do I know? I don't think I know anybody with a black Cadillac.
No.
No?
Not me neither.
Okay.
I don't think.
Welcome back to the show, guys.
Welcome back, everybody, as we continue our journey with Joey Leone.
Yeah. I gotta get some of
interesting.
your music up here for the next break.
I got one of my CDs with me, I think.
We don't have a CD player here.
Oh,
that's
I
that's
have
so
a
last
8-track?
century. 8-track,
You want a
yeah.
reel-to-reel? How about a
How about a
how about a
anything else?
mini disc?
78?
No, you got some stuff on your YouTube. I'll just
Yeah,
pull it from there. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Cool. I was gonna. It's one of those things.
yeah.
I completely just lost. I went blank. I do that a lot. Let's go back to GTA for a second
Yeah.
here. Now you said you did soundtrack for the GTA.
No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
No. I did soundtracks for movies.
Okay, gotcha.
No, when I was contacted to do not even to do anything, just that they were going to use my name and my likeness
Uh-huh.
for Grand Theft Auto.
Well, I guess we should go back and just. How did all this happen? How did this start?
I've had the band name Chop Shop since
right,
1988.
Yeah, with the horns and.
Well, it was actually a black soul band that did covers in some of my original material.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so that band was doing real well in New York, and it was getting like kind of a buzz. And years ago, I had a guy in the record business tell me that he would not listen to a band's demo if they didn't take time enough to come up with a good name. He said, if you didn't take time enough to come up with a good name, I'm not listening to your music. So, because that's what they're selling, is the
Yeah.
name.
Oh, sure.
So I came up with the name Joey Leone's Chop Shop because the guys in the band had really good chops, as you know, as a
Sure.
musician.
Yeah,
is
yeah,
a big
yeah, it's double
is
on- yeah.
part of the vernacular. and the Joey Leone, which is an Italian name, which a lot of people, former management of mine, always was like, maybe you should change your name away. And an old partner of mine actually wanted me to change my name from an ethnic name. So it was Joey Leone's Chop Shop, which was kind of like a FU to everybody that wanted me to change my name.
Yeah.
The Chop Shop.
There you go.
And then there was kind of a little bit of a kind of carryover to some of my alleged antics that didn't involve music.
Lifting cars and cutting them up.
No. It wasn't necessarily that, but it was some other stuff, and of course being involved in doing music for adult movies. And then, so there was a cassette that went around New York, and we won one year at the New Music Seminar. We were like the band that was like the #1 band on their demo cassette, and we were the next band to get signed, supposedly, and all this other stuff. So Joey Leone's Chop Shop was this name going around. Well, I guess the guys that developed the video game got a copy of the cassette, and they were like, "Whoa, Joey Leone's Chop Shop." So I think they started to work on the game, I think in the late 90s. And GTA was the third of the Grand Theft Auto.
Right, yeah.
But that was the one that had the newest technology at the time. So it was really a groundbreaking video game because it had this. I don't know anything about the technology of it, but I know that there was something in that game that hadn't been in any other video games, which made it popular. Plus the theme, the gangster theme. We all know that nonsense is always big.
Yeah.
I'm sure my boys would know. They both were. They had them all. They were obsessed with that.
Yeah,
game.
even to this day, I have people like come over to me at gigs. They see my name, they're quoting Goodfellas and stuff. I mean, it's it's part of the deal of being an Italian and being from Brooklyn. So anyway, I get a phone call from these guys, and they're like, "Hey, we want to use your name and your likeness." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And they were like, I said, "Well, can I do the music for it?" He goes, "No. We got the music. We just want to let you know." And I said, "Oh, okay." And they said, "But we're going to pay you." And I said, "Oh, okay." And they quoted me a number, and it was a lot more than I was expecting. At that time, I was living in Vermont, and I had kids, and I was struggling to make a living, as most musicians do. So the money came in really good. And, of course, I signed with a little piece of release that they sent me. $750 million later.
Yikes.
And not that I had anything to do with it, and not that I expected anything more from it, but I did at one point contact a lawyer, and Rockstar Games was bought by Sony. So there was no way I was going to court.
Wonderful.
Yeah, there was no way I was going to court. But an attorney did tell me, if I were you, I'd kind of try to cash in on that because they can't do anything about that.
That's very true.
So my Google presence went up 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
But in the last couple of years since the pandemic, I'm not working that much. I'm in kind of like a semi-retirement, pandemic semi-retirement.
Right.
I moved from the East Coast. I still tour and stuff, but when you're playing 11 shows a week in Killington for 5 months at a time, your Google presence is just ridiculous. And I was blowing GTA out of the water for 15 years.
Yeah.
Until things
That's
started.
awesome.
But and then the funny thing is, I was saying to you before, is I don't even know anything about the game. I get this money. I don't know anything's going to happen for it. I get a phone call for one day at my house in Vermont on my house phone, and it's CBS News.
Oh.
And it's like, hold on for Dan Rather.
Oh, you're kidding me.
And they were recording me.
Oh, wow.
And of course, but I've been in the business for so long, Paul. I you know what I did? I said, "Are you Joe Leone from the Grand Theft Auto game, Joey Leone?" I said, "No, I'm not from the game. I'm Joey Leone. I'm the guy that they used." "Well, do you know that they're killing police officers and all this other stuff?" I said, "I'm a guitar player. I'd love to talk to you about my band."
Yeah.
And then and I did get one more phone call.
Nice.
I did get one more phone call from CNN. I pulled the same routine on it. Because, of course, if you're a struggling musician that wants to talk about their band, that's a great way to get somebody from national media to hang up in your face.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
I'm going to use that next time I get the, your
great.
car's extended warranty call.
Right?
Yeah, well,
I'm just going to keep him on the line as long as I can, talking about music.
well, Sparky, my drummer, who I've worked with for many years, he does that. We're on the road, we're on tour. He gets those calls.
Oh, does he?
And he dicks these guys around at an unbelievable level. I mean, but yeah, I mean, so the GTA thing kind of, and it's funny because on tour, I've done a fair amount of CDs and stuff over the years. I've probably sold 5,000 or 6,000 CDs, over these last years. But I'd say 40% of the time people want me to sign something, it's a young kid wants me to sign a copy of GTA. which is
Well,
fine.
yeah, why not?
There's
You
no
know.
such thing unless you're a terrible criminal. In this business, they always say there's no such thing as bad press.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Exactly.
And the
He
fact
don't-
that you take it so well. I mean, some people would be bitter. Some people would still be
No.
trying to find that money, trying to get that mailbox money. But you're just,
No.
dude, you took the whole thing in stride. It gave you a ton of notoriety.
It's funny, Paul. I've done a lot of things. I have my Joey Leone signature guitar. I've played with a lot of famous people. But the
We'll get
things,
into that, yeah.
But the things that I've really, the things that really were the evergreens in my career were the little things.
Yeah.
Like the little words from like really great musicians in a private moment that said, "Wow, I really love you playing. Wow,
yeah.
you got a great sound." That's something.
That's gold.
Like saying like great guitar players coming up to me and going, "Man, I really dig your sound." Or a really great guitar
Yeah.
player I know who plays instrumental music said to me, "Man, I'd kill to be able to sing like you."
Wow.
So like those moments
Yeah.
to me,
I get it.
I love you, Joni. I
Yeah.
love you, Joey.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, you know what? And the
Wow.
other thing too is that I always say I was doing an interview on one of the tours with this, with this young lady from a newspaper out, and I think it was from from Nebraska, and she was saying to me, she says, "Well, can you describe your career to me? You've done this, you've done that," and I said, "At this point, first of all, you're never going to be compensated. I've done okay, but you're never going to be compensated to the level of your commitment to the art."
Right.
I mean,
Right,
the great
yeah.
artists died and their paintings became famous. Not that I'm a great artist, but
Right.
but
Yeah, I get
but
it.
what I said, just not even thinking, I said, it's like living in the house that you always dreamed of, the perfect house for you, but nobody else can come over.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you share the experience of walking into a place, and somebody saying something kind to you, or like, I could tell you experience after experience that happened to me that were single solitary moments
Yeah.
that had nothing to do with playing with Chubby Checker or having Chubby Checker sing a song that I co-produced at the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
most people would talk about that for the end of time. I never
Right.
mention that stuff
It's the little things.
because those are the things that really are truly lasting, especially in this business where if you're looking for a big payday,
Yeah, you're in the wrong business.
I know, and I'm not going to mention a name, a famous guitar player, one of the most famous guitar players, who did not play on his own record. A studio guy played on his record, and this guy became famous for that record. You know what that must be like for him?
Yeah.
That's like Michael Jordan's father finding out that he wasn't Michael Jordan's father.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You're getting, in this business, you have to be able to get something out of it. Because you're going to be rejected, you're going to be treated like a fool, you're going to be told to dress in
sir.
the kitchen, you're going to be told that there was a problem with the sound, there was a problem with this, so that you have to be able to extract something of a more lasting nature to be able to continue in this business, and like you said before, have a good attitude.
Yeah.
I never dreamed I'd be in the club. I was a kid who looked at musicians. I'm talking about guys that played weddings, and I'd be like, oh my God, these guys are unbelievable.
Right.
And now
right.
I'm a low member, but I'm a member of the club.
There you
Right.
go.
And that's what,
That's all. that's all
Focus
it
on the
takes.
positive. Yeah. Got to.
I'm just, I'm one of the cats. And so when we played a gig, and I'll brag a little bit and name drop a little, but we were playing a gig at the North Dakota State Fair, I think in 2016. And, Dwight Yoakam was playing in outside, and I'm a big Dwight Yoakam guy.
Yeah. I saw him.
He's playing outside in the bowl, and we're outside. You can't get out of that place at the end of his show without going through the beer garden. We're playing. So there was I think
Nice.
there was 6,000 people there, and they're coming out, and we're playing. It's just my trio. And then all of a sudden, about 40 minutes into the set, I look over, and there's Dwight and his band on the side of the stage.
Watching.
So I stop playing. I go over. I'm like, dude, I'm a big fan of his guitar player. I forget his name. Great guitar player. And he said to me, we never get out of the bus. We never get out of the bus. But we were sitting there going, who the hell is this guy that's playing Johnny Cash, surf music, Led Zeppelin, and Grand Funk Railroad with a Telecaster out of a twin reverb? Like, we got to go see who this maniac is. And that was, like I say, one of those moments that meant
Right.
more to
Twice.
me
Good guy too.
than any check, any
Yeah.
video guy could send to me, because
Right.
I'll just spend the money.
Right.
Yeah.
It-
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing about spending money that's a memory.
Right.
I don't care if you buy a Ferrari.
Yeah.
That it's transitory.
materialistic.
It
know,
doesn't really mean anything.
No.
I don't know whoever came up with the saying. All I know is I repeat it often. Is that's the only real thing we spend is time.
There you go.
So yeah, time is worth more than any amount of cash.
And spend it carefully.
Yes. Yeah, because you don't get it back. No refund.
I mean, a guy like you who's been like a disciplined, classically trained musician, there is no way that you could be ever compensated for the amount of time and dedication you have put into the instrument and to the music.
Right. And, that goes both ways, too, because, yeah, from my side, it was very disciplined, very strict. From your side, you had to learn it all.
Well,
You didn't know what a G was.
no,
mean-
and I was trained musician as a kid.
Oh, okay. So
I
you
was
did
in
have-
I was in a
you did
school.
have-
Yes,
Okay, gotcha.
yes.
Gotcha.
I was a double bass player. Played in the school orchestra, and I took
Okay.
lessons. I never took a lesson on the guitar, but I took lessons on bass.
So you did have some of the fundamentals in the.
Yeah, I mean, which kind of, in Brooklyn in those days, in the late '60s, early '70s, that I was one of the only bass players that really could read and play
man,
and
there
stuff.
you go. Yeah.
So there was a part of it, but in all honesty, where that came into play was my analysis of records.
Yeah.
And then later on, when I became a producer, because after 1981, when the unions got chased out of New York club dates, there was no more real club dates where you could make music, money, like a wage, like a union wage.
Right.
And so I naturally became like quietly a producer because I had a studio in my basement. And so as a producer, I would always analyze records. Like, why is this a good record? What is it about this record that's a good record? And then I would analyze it. But as a trained bass player, I'd be able to listen to cats like Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
And the time has come.
Yeah. We'll pick this up after the break, guys. We're going to the top of the hour break, so we'll
Yeah,
see
because
ya.
there's somebody in the group, Irene Relief, you played with Aerosmith.
Oh,
Joe
we'll
Perry.
get to
Andrew's
that.
bringing up.
Joe Perry.
We will get to that, folks. So stick around. We're coming
Yeah.
back after the top of the hour break.
Yes. Bring me liquor when I'm thirsty. Bring me coffee when I wanna sleep. Bring me jet fuel for my heart. A truckload of guns don't mean nothing to me. Don't need electric light for my double wide. Don't need fat tires for driving in the snow. Just bring me a little bit of everything and wake me up when it's time to go. Mama said I was a dying breed. Being part of something means nothing to me. You can bow your head as I pass on by. You wanna see the world, just look in my eyes. You can feel the ice water running through my veins. You can see the dirt under my fingernails. You can hear the rumble in my walk and talk. My gift for trouble, oh, it never fails. Mama said I was a dying breed. Being part of something means nothing to me. You can bow your head as I pass on by. You wanna see the world, just look in my eyes.
Welcome back to the show, guys.
Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome. We're back with the industry here on KTOX Radio in the Tri-State. 92.9 FM and 1340 AM, the Tri-State's talk leader, except for today.
Yeah, except for Saturday evenings.
Except for Saturday, yeah, Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. We are no longer the talk radio leader. We are the local entertainment leader.
Yeah. There you go.
So that was Joey's band you heard there coming in.
Yeah.
Dying Breed was the name of that one, and that, from what Joey's telling me, that was recorded live.
Yeah,
Wow.
in Nashville, in Blackbird Studios in Nashville with Chad Cromwell on drums, who was the drummer with Neil Young, and Mike Brigatino, who's famous bass player from down in Nashville, played with Faith Hill, and and so they were like. And the funny thing about that session was that usually those guys will get a demo to shed from,
Yeah.
Or a chart, and we go in there to record. They're like, we don't have any of these songs. We don't know any of them. And I went into the drum booth with Chad Cromwell, who's a big guy. He's like $5,000 a day, to record on your record.
Wow.
And I said to him, look, dude, I played with Wilson Pickett. Okay, I'm no stumble-bum guitar player from Vermont. We're going to learn the tune, and we're going to play it, and we're going to record it. And he looked at me, and he was like, wow. I was like, yep, let's do it, man.
Let's do it.
And then we did it, and even the solo was on one
That's
take.
awesome.
I think we ran through the song rough 2 or 3 times. But, when you get guys at that level,
Yeah.
you almost
Right, yeah.
want that. You don't want them to really learn the song. How many times when you've been in bands or jam with guys where it's like that first time there's this unbelievable magic in the room?
Oh, yes.
And then later on, like the second time, you're all trying to recapture that magic, which was so magical, but it was impromptu. The second time, now I got to make it work.
yeah, you got to be able to repeat it.
I had a feeling that when I've been in studios my whole life, that's what you really want from a quote-unquote rock record.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. These days, you got a guy in Vermont that's doing the bass line. You got a guy in Nebraska that's doing the guitar. You got, somebody in Florida with the vocals. They're all piecing their tracks together in different studios, and they send them to one central producer. To me, that just kind of takes the heart out of everything.
Well, I know personally, working, and I'll drop some names, working with Wilson Pickett, working with Chaka Khan, working, with Joe Perry from Aerosmith,
Yeah.
Playing with John Popper from Blues Traveler. The whole idea is to be in the same room with them.
Exactly.
To be in this,
to feed off each other.
It's like years ago I was in the studio and I always used to bring a Leslie in with me to play my guitar through a Leslie. That was kind of my thing for a couple of years. Bring a guitar, play it through a Leslie. And he goes, you don't have to bring your Leslie in. I've got a machine that does exactly like the Leslie. And I said, does it smell like the Leslie? that weird Leslie smell that with the rotating speaker that's been in there for 30 years and it smells like somebody's basement.
And the wood's been soaking up beer and cigarettes from every bar.
I mean, come on, the vibe is everything.
Yep.
Plus, there's that weird kind of like almost like body language. Like I can tell if I'm playing with a cat. Like a lot of the singers that I backed up over the years, I can tell if they're digging what I'm doing.
Right.
And I can tell if they're starting to not dig what I'm doing, and I can pull back a little bit. Mm-hmm. My first professional gig when I first got into the Union in New York City, I was only 18 years old, and I was a bass player.
Wow.
And my dad was very proud of me, God rest his soul. And I got a gig from the Union. We knew somebody and said, "Oh, they're looking for a Fender bass in those days." So if you was in those days in the 70s, if you were in the Union and it said they were looking for a bass player, that meant they were looking for an upright player.
Oh, yeah.
If they wanted an electric player, it was Fender bass.
Fender bass.
Right. Whether you showed up with a Fender or not. So I show up at this thing, and it's Vic Damone. It's like a famous,
Oh, man.
Yeah. And I got fired 20 minutes into the first professional gig I had.
What?
Because I probably played a little too loud and a little too vigorous. I mean, I was reading charts.
Right.
He was playing The Way You Look Tonight and some real pop standards. And then they played a song that I happened to know well because I had heard records of it called Birth of the Blues. So, and there's the part where the drummer goes, bum, 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 and the singer, da, 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 and I start going to the bass and going, boom, 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 boom. Like arpeggiating, that real thick, flat wound.
It's got some authority to it.
Yeah.
He stops the band in the middle of rehearsal. He points at me. He goes, "Who the hell is that?" And the guy says, "What's the guy from the union? Get rid of him. Get somebody else in here."
Oh, man.
And I went home, and I drove home, and my tail between my legs. And my dad said, "What happened?" And I said, "Oh, Daddy, I think I played too loud." Or he goes, "Did you learn something?" I said, "Yeah, I learned something." He goes, "I never liked that Vic Damone anyway." Typical Sicilian father, you know. Always the kid's never wrong. I never liked that Vic Damone anyway.
Yeah.
So that's that's the situation. But dropping names and being associated. Like recently, I met somebody from Las Vegas who said to me, "Oh, if you're going to make it in Las Vegas or you want to play some gigs in Las Vegas, you got to drop the names of every famous person you play with." I don't do that.
Right.
I'm not a has-been. I'm Joey Leone in 2023. I bring all that with me, but you're hiring me for what I bring,
Right.
I
Not for who you know.
played with Joe Perry from Aerosmith. Joe's a friend. I played with him. It's fine. I'm not going to book my career on
Right.
Sure.
It's so at the antithesis of the whole idea of this is associating your name with other people. So yes, it's a good part of me. But you know what people say to me? Joey, what was the magic? What was the thing that was most important? Was it the playing? The playing is a given. You've got to be
Right.
able to play. It's
Yeah.
whether you can hang, keep your mouth shut, be private, and not ask for autographs or pictures.
Yeah.
It's the old
Right.
story. My friend Mark Paquin, a great musician, we always say, act like you've been there before.
Yeah.
If you start acting like an amateur, no matter how good you're playing, just get rid of that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a jerk. And growing up in Brooklyn amongst gangsters and people that were like well-known people, you knew that you had to be humbled. When you're being paid to play the bass or play the guitar, you play the bass and the guitar. And D&D, deaf and dumb, keep your mouth shut. And that's part of the professionalism. It's like when guys come up to you and they go, and I'm sure it doesn't bother you, but what kind of keyboards are you using? What kind of everything's about the gear. Like I made the mistake of putting up this stupid video on YouTube the other day of this room that I built at the ranch that we have out in Arizona. A humidified, temperature-controlled room where I can finally put my
I
guitar.
saw that.
Right. Yes.
You
I saw
cannot
that.
believe the response. It's like, oh my God, you got so many guitars. Dude, I've owned over 500 guitars in my life. I didn't
It's
put
your
up for that.
career.
No, but I'm saying, I just did it just to show people that I got a room for them now.
Right.
Yeah.
It
But
had
they
nothing
made it
to,
about the gear.
It had
Yeah.
nothing to do with it, and I
It
don't want to
wasn't
be
like you weren't bragging to say, "Look at all my guitars." It was
right.
to see.
I could finally store them correctly.
Yeah, I don't want to be associated with that kind of ridiculous, worship. The instrument
Right.
does nothing. The instrument is not alive. The instrument needs you to. It's an inanimate object.
Right.
And it needs
it's just like a car. It needs you to drive it. I mean,
Right. You don't get in Dale Earnhardt's car and
Yeah.
and drive, like he drives.
Yeah.
Right.
So the whole idea of the instrument and, what pickups and, what strings. I mean, I don't mind having the conversation with people, but I've seen some unbelievable guitar players play cheap guitars. I mean, all the old blues guys, the guys I worshipped, they played $50 guitars.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
And left them in their
Not the
cars
talent.
in the middle of the winter in Chicago and then took them out.
And they're warped, and you're still playing them.
Yeah. I mean, the Beatles, the most famous band of all time, did they have a guitar tech? No. Neil Aspinall was their road manager, and he used to change strings on George's Rickenbacker. And he used to, so if you listen to a lot of the Beatle records, there's like string buzzing because they had nobody to fix their guitars.
Right.
That's music.
Yeah.
All this, guitar
Yeah.
tech and a great story about Joe Perry. I'll tell you one quick story about Joe Perry. We're doing the sound check for this benefit that Joe asked me to do. And originally I was going to play with his band. And then originally he called me. He said, "Look, I want to play with your band and do this big benefit." There was a big hurricane in Vermont.
Right.
And he said, "Joey, I want to do this anyway." So we do it. And, Joe says, should we get together and rehearse? I said, "Nah, we don't need to rehearse. Just Now, the idea of getting together with Joe Perry to rehearse would probably be somebody's dream come
Sure.
true. But I was busy. He was busy. And I just said, you know what? We're just going to play, man, like I said before.
Yeah.
So my daughter has got a little video of the sound check. And Joe's got his 59. Because he asked me, he said, Joey, what guitar should I bring?
Yeah.
So you got to bring the 59 Les Paul. And I said, and you got to bring the Dan Armstrong that Keith Richards gave you. You know, it's that lucite guitar when the Keith Richards plays on Get Your Yayas Out. So he brings the two guitars, and he's playing a 59 Les Paul, and he's got like a vintage amps. He's got this, and he's got like 4 amps. I've got my Joey Leone signature guitar made in Korea through a deluxe reverb, a 20-watt amp. He's got like 400-watt amps, going. And I swear to you, in the middle, in the sound check, he looks over at his guitar tech and goes, why does Joey sound so much better than me? And that was like, again, one of those moments that you just look at.
Wow. All right, guys. That was fun. We'll be back after this, and when we come back, Kathy's got a couple announcements, and then we'll get right back with Joey.
Yeah. Kathy in here.
Yeah, so hang on. We'll be back.
Let the sun beat down upon my face. Stars fill my dream. I'm a traveler out both time and space to be where I've been. Sit with others on the gentle race. Words seldom seen. They talk of days for which they sit and wait. All will be revealed. Talking song and tongue of lilting rays. Sounds caress my ear. And not a word I heard could I relate. The story was quite clear. Whoa, 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 yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
And welcome back to the industry, guys.
Welcome back, everybody.
It's KTOX, 1340 AM, 92.9 FM here in the Tri-States talk entertainment leader.
Yeah.
Entertainment talk leader. Yeah, that's it.
That's
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
Just for today.
Yeah,
anyway.
talk
Just
with
for
the
today.
music. Yeah.
So, okay, Kathy's got an announcement
I
here real
just
quick.
have a quick shout out, please, to a good family friend named Haley Stevenson. She's been nominated to be on the cover of Inked magazine. Okay, she's a
Nice.
talented artist, tattoo artist, and if you guys could please go over and vote for this wonderful young woman who has a heart of gold. She's just amazing. Over at cover.inkedmag.com, cover.inkedmag.com. Her name is Haley, Haley Stevenson, Stephenson. If you can vote for her, please, we'd appreciate it. Thanks, y'all.
There you go.
Yeah, it's music related.
All right. So the music coming back in, that was a band called the Martin Miller Band. And they were doing the cover of Cashmere.
That was nice.
Yeah. We've been
Really good.
hooked on Martin Miller for quite a while.
A friend of yours?
He has a session band in Germany. This is a German band.
They're incredible.
And they're
well, you know, the
amazing.
Germans are very accurate.
They're very accurate,
Yeah.
and they're very good
Smart.
at. I got to give this guy kudos. I've heard him sing songs in like 4 different languages,
Oh, really?
and he's amazing. He's a guitar teacher, instructor. He's got a very big online presence. But what I really like about Martin is, like with Kashmir here, he didn't try to do Robert Plant. He kept his vocals to what.
Oh, that was
he
him
could
singing
do.
it?
That was him singing it.
Oh, it sounded like a female vocalist.
Yeah. He can get up there. He's
They're
got a good
amazing.
voice.
Is he cute?
I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But
Well, let's find out.
Yeah.
the best.
I want my female sounding singers to be good looking.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't want any guys that look like me sound like Robert Plant.
Good looking cells.
Yeah. Well, I like the production of it too because he kept to that mix of the mellotron and the guitar, which is so important in the hook of that. The hook is the riff, obviously, but that mix, that interesting kind of mix between the mellotron and the guitar is very much part of that. I've heard a lot of people cover it where the guitar's too loud or the keyboards are too loud. It's that.
This one, which really surprised me, they've got a guy cranking the B3.
Right.
That den. He's holding down that drive with the B3 on the low end.
Is it distorted? Like, is it distorted B3?
Yeah, it's a completely over the top, overdriven B3, and it gives us such a low end. Oh man, it's just viciously mean.
The guy on my last record, Bo Sasser, the guy that plays, a dear friend of mine, great B3 player.
Yeah.
Played again. That record was recorded live, a Long Road Home record. He's just a B3 maniac, and just he knows how to make it clean. He knows how to make it dirty. He knows. I mean, it's just when you get a guy that really knows that instrument, it's the playing, and then there's the instrument.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a sitar almost.
Almost.
Yeah, it's like the instrument has a certain sound to it, but what you do with it is
right. And my favorite B3 player at the moment is Lackey Doley. He's an Australian cat.
You don't like no Americans. It's Germans, Australians.
And Swedish is
Swedish.
Dirty Loops.
Dirty Loops is Swedish.
Swedish, and then
I'll get around to my American
just
contingent here shortly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Lackey Doley, he does blues, and wow, he's got one of those. What the heck was it?
Lap steel?
No, it's a clav. It's a whammy clav. He's got the clavinova with the whammy bar.
Oh
on it.
yeah.
And, he does Bill Withers, Use Me, and you can't.
I've seen that guy. Yeah, I've seen that. Maybe you shared that.
I think I have. Yeah,
but that's not really blues. I mean, it's like bluesy, but it's not
bluesy. Yeah,
yeah.
But no, he does all the blues festivals. He plays. Yeah, he's.
Well, these days, I mean, I'm a blues, lecturer, aficionado.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that kind of people think is blues, but it really isn't. It's bluesy. It's blues is a very specific thing. Now you can have a reggae groove or a reggae influence, but when you listen to the real Jamaican Cats, that's reggae. I'm sorry to say it, but I mean it's very hard for we Caucasians to come up with legitimately authentic black music.
Yeah.
When you called before, I cringed. I don't cringe when you talk about GTA. I cringe when you say I'm a world-class blues guitar player because I am not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a friend. I appreciate the thing, and if you looked at my history of the blues thing, you'd say, okay, I approach it more as a historian, and I try to play blues appropriately. But there's some guitar players like my friend Dean Schott from New Jersey. He's a young guy. Mm-hmm. He's unbelievable. He can sound like any old. He's got the gig with the Thunderbirds now.
Oh,
so he's
wow.
playing. I mean, that's you taking Jimmy Vaughan's place. It's like taking Jimi Hendrix's place. But I mean. So the blues thing is kind of so you go to a blues festival. I played one in the the Sioux Falls Jazz and Blues Festival. It's a big one in South Dakota, a very big one. And I was one of the featured acts. I was like the main act on Thursday. They had like a gypsy jazz band go on before me.
Gypsy jazz.
A gypsy jazz band and a world beat band go on. The gypsy jazz is like that Django Reinhardt stuff.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
With the violin and the acoustic guitars. And then the band that goes on after me is like a 20-piece world beat band.
Oh wow!
But and they were both great, but it wasn't really blues.
Yeah.
But if you trace where the blues comes from, the blues influenced all of those musics. So in a way, it is appropriate. Mm-hmm. But it's the labeling of it that gets a little funky.
It's been a huge influence on so many.
Well, I mean, when I teach the lecture, I mean, there's no American music aside from heavy metal that you can't hear direct influences of the blues. Heavy metal is the one music, I don't know if it's American music or whatever, but it's the one music where even me as a blues aficionado and a historian, I can't really hear the blues in it. Although Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi's playing, I can.
Oh, Tony Iommi, yeah.
And his playing I can because he plays, but later on, the heavy metal guitar players started to get into more of that chromatic Lydian kind of stuff, that more classical riffs and stuff, which really has nothing to do with the
old school
blues.
Black Sabbath was more.
Was more that minor third, flat 5/5, chromatic from 4 and 5. But really, you could hear the blues influence in it melodically.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, no, there's no. But you're talking about country music, you're talking about reggae music, you're talking about rhythm and blues, you're talking about rockabilly,
All of it.
all direct,
All of it.
directly from the blues. And in
A lot of people don't realize Led Zeppelin was a blues band.
I had a guy audition for the band one time years ago, and I said, "Are you familiar with blues?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I listen to Led Zeppelin every day." Obviously I hung up on him, but but yes, I mean, Led Zeppelin was. I mean, all those guys.
All of them had heavy influences from blues. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, as a musician, the Beatles were the only really pop. They were so pop because the Beatles weren't really blues influenced like the Stones were. The Beatles were influenced by pop standards.
Right.
And it really turned into that when they started to write. The Beatles songs aren't written like blues songs.
Mm-hmm.
They have melodic and, like I remember when I was a kid, like a lot of musicians, older musicians said that McCartney, when they would analyze his bass playing, they said he played piano bass.
Yeah.
bass.
Okay.
Because he played bass like a piano player does,
Uh-huh.
as opposed to a country bass player or a rock or blues bass player, plays the root and fifth.
Yeah.
Where McCartney was playing the third over
Right.
the tonic chord, or playing a third over the four chord, or modulating or playing an arpeggiate, which really wasn't done at that point, except for like James Jamerson from Motown.
Okay.
He was the guy who was really breaking ground in R&B, not playing it your typical bum ba bum ba bum ba bum ba bum ba bum. Like most R&B bass players play that style.
Yeah.
Whereas James Jamerson would look at a chart, and you listen to his, which you can on YouTube, James Jamerson's solo tracks. It's unbelievable what he was doing on songs like My Girl and these pop songs. And you listen to the bass line, it sounds like he's playing fusion.
I think he'd really like the bass player from Dirty Loops.
Oh yeah, I've heard them.
Henrik Linder.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Yeah, that kid's he's in his 20s, 30s, and he's just a monster. Yeah.
I mean, bass is a very, very challenging instrument. I always say bass, as I started out as a bass player, hard instrument. I mean, easy instrument to play, hard instrument to play well.
That's what I
Yes.
wanted to play when I was younger, was the bass. But I never did.
Chick bass players, man. I mean, that's as cool as the other side of the pillow.
That's
I mean,
what I
Yeah,
almost
yeah,
got a
yeah,
bass
yeah, yeah.
guitar when I was like 21, I think 20. But
Tal Wolkenfeld
right. Yeah.
with Jeff Beck.
Right. And
She.
'cause I would have played drums
He
or
picked her
bass
up when
if I
she was
could.
14 years old or something.
let's hope not.
yeah,
Where's my
not
rim
like
shot? Where's
that, not
Sparky?
like
Where's my rim shot? Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, look. You don't have to be a big guy with long fingers like Stanley Clarke to be a
Right.
good bass player.
Yeah.
It really, if you can't conceptualize something in your head, it'll never come out of your fingers.
right.
You
Oh, yeah.
have to be able to. That's like sometimes when I'm showing somebody a song in the band, and I always say, you don't have ears in your fingers.
Right.
Just listen first. Then we can work on it. You're trying to show somebody something, and they start playing along with
Yeah.
you. Like,
Yeah. No.
It's like that.
Yeah,
Everything
yeah.
you have to think. You have to be able to imagine it and see it first.
I was one of
before
those.
you
I was
implement
one of
it.
those people. I had to listen to it over and over and over again. I'm a very slow learner when it comes to ear listening. When it comes to ear, using my ear to translate.
most
to my
creative
fingers.
people are that way.
But I did know a guy. My co-writer with my last band, the Blood Orange Project, Dave. He could hear a song once and play it perfectly.
Right.
I people like that are just alien to me.
That's a talent. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just. I played with a guy in Brooklyn, Frankie Antico. He was a blind piano player. He could play any song in any key after hearing it once.
Yeah.
Johnny
yeah.
Barnes pretty good about that too.
He is. John's real good about
Yeah,
that.
he stepped in over there with
Yeah, I mean,
studio, he's-
that's a certain talent.
Yeah.
It can get in your way sometimes because it doesn't affect the creative process. Because sometimes people that can't replicate what they hear on a record, there's a chance they're going to be more creative and more original.
True.
So those disciplines, if you have a band, it's good to have a couple of those guys in the band.
Yeah.
With different skill sets.
Sure.
So I'll go through and I'll learn everything first, and then I'll go and I'll make my changes or I'll make my little flavor addeds or whatever,
Right.
Yeah, I can see where it would get in the way.
I've never had that. One time I was in the studio with some musicians, and I was like, yeah, it's kind of got like an Elvis feel to it, this song. And the guy goes, gee, it reminded me of the New York Dolls. I was like, oh boy, I better keep my mouth shut, But
Was that Buster Poindexter? Wasn't that?
yeah,
Yeah. New York Dolls.
I auditioned for him many years ago when he left the Dolls, and he said to me, he said, man, you're a good bass player, but you'd have to lose about 25, 30 pounds because you look too healthy. And at that time, I was in great shape.
Yeah.
And he said, you look a little too healthy for this band. We're looking for that heroin addict.
Yeah, that's strung out.
Yeah. I was like,
Wow.
okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad.
Well, you know what? I understand if you're a director and you're casting a movie, you do need
this is
people
true.
that fit the size.
Yeah,
He
this is
wasn't
true.
worried about the playing. He was worried
Right.
about the image of the band on the
Right.
stage.
Then you wouldn't fit. Yeah.
So
the
I mean,
I never
production,
thought
the
about
image,
that
yeah.
before, but yeah, that does make sense.
it's look, the name of the show is The Industry.
Yes.
And let's face it, I started playing professionally in the mid '70s.
Okay.
It really is no industry anymore. Now
Not
it's a
anymore.
complete. People say when you put your stuff on YouTube or Facebook, it's like putting they're trying people to find a needle in a haystack.
Yes.
I don't think so. It's trying to find hay in a haystack. It's almost nearly impossible
Yeah.
for
I
anybody.
agree, and we can get into that when we come back from the break here.
I wish
which is
we
in
would,
just a
yeah.
few seconds, because I totally agree with you, and I've gone through that so many times, trying to tell people the new face of the industry, the new face of how music is produced, and
You got to
getting
promote it.
promoted, get it out to the public
That's
for the
important.
consumer.
That's important. We really should cover that. I mean, aside from
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
video
sure,
games that
absolutely.
I was wrongly embodied in.
There's a reason he lives in Chloride, folks. He's in the witness protection program.
Oh no!
We'll be back after this. Welcome back to the industry on KTOX 1340 AM 92.9 FM in the tri-state.
Welcome back, everybody.
That was your music, right, Paul?
Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
Blood Orange Project.
Man,
That was Paul on
I
keys.
was slamming, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We I haven't written anything original in 10, 12 years now.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
I went through an 18-year.
Yes, sir.
Did you?
Yeah,
Oh,
I didn't write, and unfortunately, thing that got me going was when my son passed away.
Oh, see now.
My son passed away, and
I'm sorry.
no, I'm just saying it exposed a nerve in me. Like there was something I tapped into, that sadness and that my desire to try to transform this terrible event into something that I could live with. And a weird byproduct of it came out, the creative process.
Yeah.
So your son would be just like thrilled that he was able to.
Well, it's funny. If you go on my
You know.
YouTube channel, there is a song called Owen's Song, which please don't play because
okay.
I'll cry.
Yeah,
'Cause I can't even perform the song, but I did, perform it in Nashville when I recorded it, and I didn't put it on the record because I didn't want to be one of those guys that put the song on the record about his dead son.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a catastrophic. So I hope that doesn't happen for you. Maybe this interview will be catastrophic
already
enough
did.
for you.
No, let me tell you, it already
Yeah.
did. That's like you just struck a major nerve.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Like I said, I took classical lessons for 12 years. When I got out of high school, I was 17. I joined the Navy. Well,
Right,
no pianos on boats, baby.
right.
So I pretty much stopped the whole time I was in the Navy. In the meantime, I got married. I had kids. I started careers. 20 years it took me.
You got married
Yeah.
to the lovely Kathy.
Actually, no, that's
No.
rather recent. We've only been married for a few years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, we've been together.
We've been together for what, 12, 13?
almost 14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
We actually just got legally married a few months ago. 7
yeah.
months. But no, we've been together for,
Yeah, quite a while.
Shout out to my sister Barbara, who's legally getting married in a couple of days.
Aw,
Congratulations, Barbara.
Yeah. But same type of thing happened. I had completely given up and forgotten about music. And when my mom passed away,
Okay.
same thing. I inherited, the house and all that stuff. And in the house was the piano. And I started
Right.
playing
Yeah,
again.
it's
And
true.
and my mom was always her happiest when I was playing. I mean,
Right.
she just loved. I can't tell you how many hours I played Fiddler on the Roof back to back over and over again for my
Right.
mom.
And you're not even Jewish.
Yeah. Well, no, I am.
No.
You are?
Well,
No wonder we
On my mom's side.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, you are Jewish then.
Well, yeah. I mean, we don't not practice.
No wonder we get
anything.
along so good.
Yeah. But yeah, same thing. I went out. I started buying software, and I bought the computer, and I started teaching
Right.
myself how to produce and how to record and how to get things on tracks and all that stuff. Same thing. It took a catastrophic catalyst to bring
Right.
me back into it, and I'm praying it doesn't happen again. It's like I said, it's been a long time
no,
since
because
I've
you're
written,
working your way towards that.
No,
again.
if
but
you
at
can
least
ta-
I'm back into it.
Yeah.
I'm
But if you can
back
tap
doing
into
it.
if you can tap into the energy
Yeah.
that situation created,
Yes.
you don't have to experience that again because you've
Yeah,
already
he's
experienced
already
it
been
again.
practicing.
It's
And
like
that was-
great
Yeah.
actors.
That was such a time for it was an explosion of creativity. I was just
Right.
barfing out material. I mean, I would
Right.
I don't know. I must have written a couple hundred songs within
Exactly
the
the
first year
same
or two.
thing with me.
Yeah, it was just it was an outlet, and now my approach is a little different, but I still look back at some of that stuff and go, wow, that was good.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing the record, the Dying Breed record, I was working with a real big producer, a guy that sold millions of records. And he was really mentoring me and really just pushing me as a songwriter. I gave him like 20 songs that I had written, and he was like, "These are really good songs, Joey." And then I sent him a song that I had just written. He goes, "Okay, this song is the beginning. Every song from this point on has to be better than this one. Forget those other 20. And that was like, I almost freaked out when he did it, but that was
a
that was
challenge.
a great thing. But I discovered something about the business during that part. I mean, I had two distribution deals and one 360 deal on the table that I could have signed. Once the distribution deal was Sony Red, the other one was with Universal. And by some freak accident, my goddaughter was at my house with her husband, her then husband, who was a very successful independent music guy. Did like the Vans, the Warp Tour and stuff.
Oh,
he was
yeah,
like
yeah,
a rapper,
yeah, yeah.
but he was a comedian. He was on like Adult Swim. He was
Right.
really successful. And I had only met him the first time, and he was at my house, and I had the contracts on the table. And he looked at me, he said, "Uncle Joey, why would you sign this?" Mm-hmm. He said, "You've got a fan base." He says, "I've sold CDs. I've never given a nickel to anyone."
Mm-hmm.
I still got the contracts in the house. I threw them. I pushed them away. Didn't sign. The first Dying Breed record, I sold 4,400 CDs of.
Wow.
Now that's not
Nice.
bad for an independent guy,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
who doesn't have a distribution deal and stuff. And I made more money on that the money I made on that, which I won't say over the air, but the money I made on that, do you know how many CDs I would have had to sell with Sony to make that?
Oh, yeah.
Don't even get me started.
160,000.
Wow.
And I would have had to worry about getting my money.
Which brings us back to the death of the music industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, because we deal with Sony on our YouTube channels, so because
Right.
of copyright stuff, so we know they have a reputation.
There's the independent
several
artist.
different-
Now, Dave, the guy that I worked with, my co-writer when I was doing
Right.
the Blood Orange, he had a company called Dr. Dream Records. It was the largest independent punk label in the nation at the time.
Wow.
And you know,
Was it
he-
a label or a distributor?
No, it was a label.
Wow.
He had a stable of like 40 or 50 bands.
Jeez.
And yeah, I mean, he was a big time guy for
he-
being an indie.
And he did tours with them and stuff. And
They all did tours. He went, yeah, I mean, he went all over the world. You know, they went to meet him every year. They did
Right.
the South by Southwest and all that stuff. They went, and he would buy out rooms at South by Southwest. He'd buy theaters and all this other
Right.
stuff to promote his bands. And yeah, he was big time. When he sold Dr. Dream, he sold it to Polygram.
Mhm.
And Polygram gave him their word on paper and everything else that they would take care of his stable. They would make sure that the label stayed alive. That
Yeah,
they would,
well,
you know,
let's forget
blah,
that.
blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. Within a year, everything was in the dumpster.
Yeah.
And they're no more. I mean, he had bands. He had guys, Paul Revere and the Raiders. He had, Paul Revere was on there for a while. He had Rich Little.
He even turned down a couple big names.
He turned down the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
They wanted in on his label. That's a good story.
Right.
He had a band called the National People's Gang, which was basically where the Red Hot Chili Peppers got their entire shtick from.
Right.
Everything they do
remember that.
is based on based on the National People's Gang, and they used to hang out at Dave's studios all the time. The Red Hot Chili Peppers, because they really wanted into his stable. They wanted to be
Right.
on his label, the Dr. Dream, and he wouldn't do it because of the drug problems.
Okay.
He had a hard rule.
The alleged drug problem.
Well, he had a hard rule. You could do anything you want as long as you were functional. He didn't care.
Right.
But if there was a needle involved, goodbye.
Business. It's business.
Goodbye.
Yeah. It's
The
bad
needle
business.
he could not trust. That was the only
Yeah.
thing. And yeah, so he did not sign those guys. But I mean, yeah, the way things were then compared to the way they are now.
Well, now there's, people talk about, the record companies, in a way, is a business, and this is a business. There's the music and there's the business. There's the music business. I mean, the record company's not making any money. It's not like they're making any money. They're not really making any money.
No.
You can't make money from someone who's not making money. Basically, what they're doing is they're basically a middleman, so they're not going to put
Right.
up any money. So if they want to sign a band, and this happened to me and my ex-partner, we had an artist that was a guaranteed, I'm talking about best Nashville songwriter, unbelievable. I mean, we took meetings. Every major record company, Disney wanted to sign this girl. She was 15.
Wow.
She was a probably the most top three of the most talented people I've ever met.
Wow.
This 15-year-old girl, and we play the demo for them. They go crazy for it. They love it. The mother and the girl are in the room. Now, as a sidebar, her family were multi-millionaires.
Okay.
So they excused the mother and the daughter, and they said they want to talk to me and my ex-partner about her. And he's the one that really discovered her. And they said, "Look, we want to sign her. This is Disney."
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, yes, okay." Go. You're probably going to have to raise, I don't know, maybe $4 or $5 million. So let us know when you guys raise the money because we're definitely we want to sign her. So these days, if you're going to sign an act, you have to go to venture capital people
Right.
for them to put up the money, like they did with Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift's father had money, and he went to two brothers, the Borchetta brothers, Scott and Craig Borchetta, who had a record company that failed, and said, "I'm going to give you the money. You need to do a good new label, Big Machine Records, and my daughter's the artist, and you're going to have the money, and you can go to all the indies. We're going to get her the best writers, the best producers, everything." And that's how she made it. Not saying she doesn't
Wow.
have talent, but that's what you have to do these days. You have to have money to go to a label. In the old days, the label used to put up money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, those days are gone because they don't have the money. Because basically there's no more revenue streams for them.
Yeah.
What are they selling? What?
This is true.
CDs? No, there's nobody buys CDs anymore.
Yeah. There's no physical product.
There is nothing.
Yeah.
It's like the emperor's new clothes. I mean, you know, it's funny because years ago I remember when we got the first CD and we brought it to my analog studio in Brooklyn with my partner, and we were like, wow, digital. You can make copies of it. We didn't realize even what we were saying. You know, you could make, but my ex-partner, Frank Bonadonna, was a great, we ended up parting ways, but he said, I put the CD on, and he put it on the Spectrum Analyzer, 31-band Spectrum Analyzer,
right.
and he looked at it, and there were frequencies missing of it. Like actual frequencies missing from a stereo 31-band maximizer, Spectrum Analyzer. And he said to me, Joey, this is not a glass of milk. It's a picture of a glass of milk. He was so prophetic because after that, of course, with all the pirating and the copies and everything,
right.
they basically shot themselves in the foot because they bought this whole idea of the digital thing because, let's say, producing a CD cost them a tenth of what it did to record to produce a record. The vinyl, the packaging, the size of the boxes that you had.
Yeah, the industry involved, the infrastructure.
Basically, they were like drug addicts. They couldn't believe all this money they were bringing in, not realizing, of course, the thing that made it so financially acceptable for them and profitable was the thing that was going to destroy them.
Yes.
So then, pretty soon, everything's in a cloud. There's no discernible music. When I was a kid, you bought a record, you had an investment in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like a friend of yours would borrow a record, he'd come back with a scratch. What the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What's wrong with you? You scratched my record. Go get me another one. You know, or you read the album jacket.
Yeah.
Oh, and the artwork.
I loved
and there
it.
was the
The
whole
artwork.
experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the artists sweat bullets over those.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Now, forget it.
No.
It's a complete joke.
Spotify, too, is taking over, I noticed.
All the
Yeah.
platforms are just a complete ripoff. Yeah. it's,
And you know
it's-
what happened? And unfortunately,
They make pennies.
they've cashed in on guys who aren't really professional guys to do this for a living. Guys that have day gigs, that have disposable income. Nothing wrong with that. But please hire us. But the guys that have disposable income, they want to. I just dropped my new record. Like in the old days when you said that, you had a record coming.
Right.
Right.
These days, any putz in the world can make a record on a computer, put it out, and everybody's like, congratulations, I always knew you'd make it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, guys. We'll be back after the top of the hour. Stick with us for the last hour. We'll open up the phone lines. like that harmony. Keep up. And welcome back to the industry, guys. It's
Hello.
KTOX. KTOX 1340 AM, 92.9 FM here in the tri-state. That was Mark Bonilla you were listening to there. Another independent musician. And we tend to do that. We like promoting independent musicians here on the show.
Yes.
He's a guy out of Los Angeles. He made his name in the business with a band called Toy Matinee. And there's dogs barking in the background. He also went on to play with Glenn Hughes and Keith Emerson. He was in the Keith Emerson band. He replaced Greg Lake. Yeah, made quite a name for himself, and he's a very, very good guitar player.
So he plays Greg Lake as the singer in the band? Obviously.
Both. He plays guitar and sings.
Oh, okay, because Greg Lake played bass.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah. He plays all of it. I think they've got a bass player. But he also worked with Dragon Force, which was, I think, Ronnie Montrose and a couple of other independent projects that the bigger names did. But yeah. So we're all about the indie musicians, and we've been talking about how the music industry is changing. Mm-hmm. The way artists can still make a living at this and at least be a productive member of society it's completely changed from the old days. And I know Joey is an independent musician, obviously, and he's making a name for himself on his own. He's doing it on his own without the help of a label. A lot of people are doing that these days, and social media has become a huge part of that.
Right.
In how you market yourself and how you get your product out to the masses for consumption. Like Joey said earlier, it's not searching for a needle in a haystack, it's searching for hay in a haystack. We're flooded, where before they had gatekeepers and you heard only what the studios put out. Basically, you heard, if you were listening to the radio, you heard what was approved for you to hear.
Right.
These days, it's wide open. It's the Wild West out there. And you can go to Sirius XM and you can, I like reggae, so they've got a reggae channel. Okay, great. But it's still programmed music. It's still a programmed feed. It's not the independent artists. And to find those independent artists, you have to really search online.
Yeah, you do.
Well, did you ever hear of this? Excuse me for 1 second. Did you ever hear of this app called Radio Garden?
No.
I think I have.
I highly recommend it. It's an app you can get on your phone. It's free. There's no ads. And it's radio stations around the entire world.
Right, yes.
Wow.
So you can get music from every... I'm stuck on all the Middle Eastern music because I love all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there's also like stations like in New York, there's like the stations that play nothing but independent like music. It's ridiculous. It's called Radio Garden. I could not recommend it anymore. I'm obsessed with it. Plus the fact of the matter is that it's music the way it used to be, where you could actually hear what the guy who's spinning the records wants you to play.
Right, yeah.
And that was, the programmed radio stations. I grew up on pop radio. We all did.
Sure,
they did make decisions for you based on what they thought you wanted to hear or what they were being paid to hear. But there were records like MacArthur Park, which was like an 8-minute long record.
Right.
And why did the DJs play it? Because they wanted to play something they could play when they went to the bathroom.
Right.
Exactly. It's Freebird, yeah. It's a bathroom song.
I mean, it's just there's a great story, and I'm going to keep it clean. But can I tell you a great industry story?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
I worked with a producer. My first producer's name was Tony Bruno. He was a singer for Capitol Records back in the 50s. He was a little short Italian guy, kind of thick glasses, but he was an amazing singer. He produced me in 1981. I met him through the adult movies. He was the guy that got fired. So I could get the gig.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the story with Tony Bruno was that he worked with this guy, Audie Rip. Audie Rip ran a label called Kama Sutra Records.
Oh, okay.
Right, and they had the Love and Spoonful. So they signed the Love and Spoonful. So Audie Rip and Tony Bruno, they can't get the record played because they don't have the money for the payola.
Yeah.
So this is a true story. Tony, from right out of his mouth. They basically printed up 500 singles apiece of "Do You Believe in Magic" by the Love and Spoonful.
Right.
This is the way it was in the 60s. You talk about the Old West. They both get their cars. Tony had a Cadillac, a convertible Cadillac. This guy had like a nice Buick Riviera. And they went and put 500 of singles in the trunk of their car, hired a prostitute in each guy's car, and went across the country with the list of radio stations. And they'd pull up in front of a radio station, give the girl the single, and say, make sure they play the record.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And the way Tony told the story, by the time they got to California, Do You Believe in Magic had charted. He was absolutely sure that the record would chart if somebody just heard it, because it's a great record.
Right.
Do you believe in
Yeah, oh,
I mean,
yeah,
it's a
sure,
record.
yeah,
You
yeah,
hear
yeah.
it. So can you imagine that's the way they broke that record? And that was their first big hit. And of course,
Yeah.
The Lovin' Spoonful
Right.
went on to you know, to be, and of course,
Yeah.
John Sebastian. Yeah, going to be, you know, monstrous hit. But in those days, that's how they broke records. You know,
Right.
I mean, it was. So these days, it's like, how do you break a record these days? Only one way: money.
Money. Because, like, with this station, you walked in today, I was like, hey, Joey, can we play some of your music? He's like, yeah, I brought a CD.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a CD player here at the station. When I worked at the other radio stations, it was the same thing. All of their music was done through online clouds, and it was distributed through the services.
Right.
And you bought a block of music that you were authorized to play. That's why you hear on a lot of these stations around here, you'll hear the same song 10 times a week, because their library is small. They can't afford to pay for a larger library. In the old days, like Joey is saying, you could take a record into a radio station and they'd play it.
Yeah, if you had money,
if you got past the gatekeeper.
and it was also I mean, obviously the format had to fit, but also there was a level of discovery that people were like, oh my God, this is good. You see, in those days there was a discriminating ear. It was like Frank Zappa talked about, you know, a discriminating ear. If you can't tell the difference between what's good water, what's tainted water, and what's poison water,
Right.
you're not going to last very long in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
And in the music business, there has to be a level of quality.
Yeah.
Right.
And when the quality dropped out, it's like, you know, what are you going to do? I mean, you want to be a guy in the room, you know, promoting mediocre music when there's
Right.
nobody. It's like bands that go in the studio without a producer. I tell people in the world, why would you go in the Beatles never even produced their own records. You need a producer. And they think I say that because I'm trying to promote myself as a producer, you know, trying to get a gig. It's not even that.
Right.
It's the point is, why wouldn't you go in the studio? Like when I did my record, I went in with this guy who was my partner, and he could say no.
Yeah.
You need somebody to go, you know what, Johnny? You could do that better. I think, you know what? Let's try something else. Because let's face it, if you two guys are in a band, you've already brought every idea you could possibly conceive into the studio. If you don't have a guy in the studio that says, hey,
You need a fresh ear.
I mean, hey, let's try something different. Hey, this is great. Let's try something different. If it doesn't work, all right, we can fix it. We don't have to use it. Let's try something different. That creative process
Right.
is
Yeah.
what people don't do anymore. All right, I already mixed it. I already put it out.
I won't say people who are new to the process, but people who don't have enough experience with it, they also feel very threatened that you're taking away their creative control. That it's not going to be their song anymore.
But you know what? That thinking eliminates a very large part of the creative process.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
You know, who here didn't go to school? Was anybody born learning how to talk or spell or read? Obviously, everybody has to learn talk or spell or read. It's the whole idea. Yeah, if that's your... Hey, look, you know, when people come to me with projects over the years, I always ask the first question, do you want to make money with this, or is this just like a vanity project?
Right.
If it's a vanity project, that's fine. I'll produce it and make it sound as good as you want. If you tell me you want to actually start to have a revenue from this, we're going to have to apply a whole bunch of different parameters to the production of this product. You know, if you're a songwriter, the song has got to be perfect.
Right.
Burt Bacharach just died. Take apart a couple of his songs.
Yeah.
Neil Young, Paul Simon, Lennon and McCartney, you know, Keith Richards and Mick Jagger. These are all great songwriters. There's a reason that Elton John has lasted 50 years. It's certainly not his piano playing.
No, it's Bernie.
Well, it's his songs, whatever the process is, you know.
You know, as a songwriter though, it's really hard to write from a. As a songwriter, it's really hard to write from a from having lyrics and then writing the music to it. You know, that's an art in itself. I've learned that over the years, but that's hard to do. So the Bernie Taupin, Elton John thing is very, very clever because Elton John knew his limitations lyrically, and he found a person, and boom, it was magic.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a skill set that you develop. I mean, you know, people always say the songwriters, what came first, the lyrics or the music. You know, there are people who have that skill set developed, and if they break that, you know, as people talk about like Paul McCartney. Why didn't Paul McCartney write Yesterday, Michelle, all these other great songs after the Beatles? There's got to be a reason. Something was going on there in his creative process to be able to push him to be able to make a very good song into an unbelievably great, timeless song.
Yeah.
And maybe that was John Lennon. Maybe it was George Martin. Maybe it was the fact that he was smoking 100 joints a day. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to take our break here. We'll be back in just a few minutes and continue this conversation on the music industry.
That's one of the hardest things.
And welcome back to the industry, guys.
Welcome back, everybody.
You're listening to KTOX 92.9 FM, 1340 AM here in the Tri-State. They call it the Tri-State's local talk leader. We say it's the local entertainment leader today.
Saturday afternoon special.
Heck yeah.
The industry.
The industry. I played that one. That was Carmageddon. I played that for Neil since we didn't get to it last week.
Yeah, that's another one of Paul on the keys. Yeah.
Yep, that was the Blood Orange project.
I'm starting to actually recognize your keyboard playing now.
Like I said earlier, the people used to call us Steroid Floyd, and that's a perfect example. We used a lot of Pink Floyd elements of progressive rock with driving electronic type music from like Rob Zombie or something. So that's where we got the name Steroid Floyd.
This room is where they used to rehearse.
Yeah. This was
Right
our
here and
rehearsal
watch
room.
'em.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that, like, you know, growing up, you know, listening to records and stuff, those early like Giorgio Moroder records and then eventually Kraftwerk, that stuff completely blew my mind. That early synthesizer stuff,
yes,
that I just could not get enough of it. And then years later, my brother Nick turned me on to Chemical Brothers, which was like another whole.
Yeah, dig your own hole.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, I love the sound of electronic music. Even as a guitar
Right.
player, I would just listen. I went to see years ago. I went to go see Devo on their second tour, and I went to see them, and I was just like, oh my God, they were unbelievable live band, and I just absolutely fell in love with them, and I just still think to this day, anytime you can put on a record with bands, and every song in the record sounds different. Like the production value is different, the instrumentation's different. That's not easy to do.
That's not easy to do, no.
And for it to be good and coalesce with each other as an album concept, that's very difficult.
That was our big concept album was Conspiranoia, which that was from. Same type of thing. Every song was a little bit different in genre. There's reggae, there's blues, there's hard rock, there's electronic, instrumental stuff.
All coming out of the filter of you guys.
Right, yeah. And see, I grew up, you're talking Kraftwerk and that crew. I grew up more with like Tangerine Dream.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The really like experimental stuff that came out in the early 70s. Actually,
Well, didn't they have a hit?
late
Didn't they-
60s.
Tangerine Dream, didn't they do a soundtrack? Weren't they
They
on?
did many soundtracks. Their
but
most
they were-
famous was Risky Business.
Yes. And what was the song? What was that song that was like? Because it was a hit. They had like a hit.
Love on a Real Train.
Was it? That was their biggest hit?
Yeah. They also did, they did work with Jeff Beck. They did work with a lot of different people on different types of soundtracks.
Imagine that Jeff Beck is dead.
Oh, God.
Imagine that.
I know. That
I mean,
one
I
hit
almost
hard.
took him. I told him Jimmy Agnello was a great friend of mine, now lives in Phoenix, but we grew up together in Brooklyn. Great guitar player. And I was saying, it's almost like we took him for granted. Like he'd always be there.
Yeah.
He'd always be able to put, because he didn't disintegrate like a lot of older guitar players did. Every time you'd see him, you go, oh my God, look at this guy.
Right.
It's almost like he was still young and still vibrant.
Right.
So to think of him dying, it's almost like, B.B. King died. He was getting old. He had diabetes.
Yeah.
He couldn't stand up anymore.
Right.
You kind
A lot
of
of times
preparing.
you see the progressive.
You were preparing
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Jeff Beck, it's like
Just
Yeah, that was out of left field.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
I know I'm an old fart. I know, but you cannot imagine what putting on. There's a couple of records in my life. I'd probably say I could probably name a couple right off the top of my head, but Blow by Blow. When I put that on the first time, and it just came out like nobody had heard. It wasn't even on the radio yet. We went to the Floyd's in Floyd Bennett Field in Brooklyn and bought the record and brought it home. We were like, oh my God, it was like it was telling us, all us rock musicians, it's okay to listen to jazz.
It's okay to be a fusion, yeah.
Yeah, to listen to the fusion stuff. And then the first record that really did that to me was the first Black Sabbath album.
Oh yeah.
I can't tell you what that was like.
That's what
As a
really got me into
13-year-old
When I was
kid.
14, 15, that was my band right there.
That 13 years old,
Yeah, oh.
that record came out. Me and my friends sat there with our mouths open.
Yeah.
The darkness of it,
Yes.
but the sound
But-
of
and
it,
the
the
lyrics were
cleanliness
amazing,
of it,
yeah.
and the lyrics, yeah. But it was so
I ran to see him. Yeah, I had to see him.
it was so
Huge fan.
clean, that record. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like the early AC/DC record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Mutt Lange
Another one.
produced.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
so
Mutt Lange, another
clean.
legend.
So clean, and it just there's some records, but Beck, man, it was just like every one of those records,
yeah.
and then he comes out with Wired, which you would think the sophomore jinx. Was it as good as Blow by Blow? It was as good.
For me, Wired was the one.
Yeah,
I
see
got
what I'm
that-
saying? Yeah.
Blow by Blow was on repeat for years with me.
Yeah, I'm the same way with Wired. It's,
Really?
yeah,
And you knew
Brush
and
with
you-
the Blues. I mean,
mean,
God,
Jan
Brush
Ham-
with the Blues is
Jan
like
Hammer
iconic.
and
Yeah.
that was,
Well, Jan Hammer was with the Mahavishnu Orchestra, which was another band
Yes.
my cousin Mike spun me on to. Tony Williams' Lifetime was the band with John McLaughlin and Tony Williams, the drummer
Mm-hmm,
from Miles Davis. And then he started Mahavishnu Orchestra. That album was another one. We put it on. We couldn't believe it. We could not believe what was coming out of the speakers. And then we went to see them live. Went to see them at Felt Forum in New York. And you know who opened up for them? Gentle Giant.
Oh,
that's
another
Remember
prog.
them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They were changing instruments in the middle of the show. The bass player was playing the drums. The drum was playing
Right,
the trumpet. It was like, what's going on here? And then Mahavishnu comes out with Jan Hammer, Billy Cobham.
Billy Cobham.
And it was funny because I was a bass
John McLaughlin.
Yeah, John McLaughlin. Yeah. So So I was like, I was a bass player at the time. So I said, Rick Laird was the bass player from Mahavishnu Orchestra. He lived in Manhattan. I call him up. I said, I'd like to take some bass lessons. He goes, well, I charge $35 an hour. I was like, okay. I was working at the time. I go to take a bass lesson from him, and he says, well, let me see what you can do. And he said, okay, I'm playing a little bit. He says, okay, let me hear you do this. I was like doing this. He has a piano. He turns his back to me. He says, okay, tell me what chords these are. And he just starts playing chords on the piano. Like, he's just telling me, what chord is this? He's playing like
minor
a
seven.
minor 7 flat 5. No, I mean, he's playing me like real chord changes, like pseudo-classical, pop standard jazz chords. And I was like, and he said, look, I don't want to take your money. There's a guy right next door that teaches. He charges $17.50 an hour. And he'll teach you better than I can teach you. He said, a couple of years, you come back, I'll show you everything I know. And he was a cool guy.
Wow.
Yeah. And I went to this guy. His name was Rich Samelin. And he was another guy. He just went over, and I was on bass. He would just go over to the keyboard and just go, okay, tell me what chords I'm playing.
Yeah.
Like, I was already reading that as Samandel and a lot of those classical books and stuff. So I was already reading bass. But he was just like, playing these chords, because I had this fusion band that I was with this guy Kenny Fink, who hopefully maybe he's listening. Great fusion band in New York called Jump Street. These guys were bringing me like music. It was my band. I was the co-leader of the band. They were bringing me music. They were like, here. I was just like, this thick. The bass charts.
Yeah.
I'm like, I better go get lessons. I had to take lessons to cut my own band.
Ah.
That's good music right there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to get replaced, man. That's another job for the producer too. They're the first one to say, "You're not gonna. That doesn't cut it. I'm sorry. We're bringing in somebody."
When I would produce records and for record companies and production companies, the first thing they'd ask me, Joey, well, I'm bringing you this band. I want you to produce a demo for them. Let me know if the drummer's recordable. That was the first thing. Let me know if the drummer's recordable.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, forget it. We're gonna have to get somebody. And there were bands that I produced, and I would be like, "We got to get another drummer." What do you mean? He's like our best friend, and like.
Right,
I'm like, dude, you can't overdub over the guy. He can't play to a click. He's all over the place. I know he's your best friend, and that's why to me, I was never really a big Guns N' Roses fan. Although I appreciate the records, but Steven Adler's drumming on that stuff is unbelievable. He's like the best musician in the band. I mean, those drums and that album. And years later, I worked with Dave Ferry up in Toronto, who knew Bob Rock. And he said when they went in the studio and they heard Steven Adler play, Bob Rock and Mike Klink went like, thank God.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's a reality of session life and working in studio environments is people get replaced. People, they bring in somebody who can do the part that you can't. And there's a lot of egos that get really burned up and butthurt over it.
Yeah, but it's a different discipline. It's not playing live.
Right.
I couldn't wait when I was working as a producer in back in the day to hire other guitar players and bass players, because I knew that would impress the hell out of the people I was working for.
Yeah.
Like, wow, Joey hired another bass player? Wow. I was like, well, I think we need what this guy.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I would do it even if I thought I could do it, just to show them that I was the producer. I wasn't the producer who was writing himself in on the session to make a couple of extra bucks.
Yep.
It's like when you're a baseball coach and your kid is like not the best player on the team.
Yeah. Been there.
You got to sit. You got to sit on the bench, kid.
Yeah.
I can't put you in because you're my son or my daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how guys like Tim Pierce make their livings. I don't know if you know who Tim Pierce is.
I know the name. Yeah.
He's a guitar player, session player. He's played on just about every single album you could name in the past 30 years. The whole, the Michael Jackson, which one was it that Eddie Van Halen did the guitar parts on for Michael Jackson?
Beat It.
Beat It, yeah. That's actually Tim Pierce, not Eddie. I hate to break it.
Wow.
Well, Steve Lukather swears up and down, who's a maniac anyway, swears up and down on a stack of Bibles that's him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a whole thing about it. I mean, if you go to Tim Pierce's YouTube channel, he goes through all that stuff. He talks about it and how he recorded it, Eddie recorded it. There was like three or four different guitar players, and it's actually a mishmash of everything. It's a cut and paste job.
Right.
It's bizarre how that all went down, but that's how things work in the studio.
One of the greatest
Wow.
one of the greatest moments I ever had in the studio was my partner and myself, Frank Bonadonna, who I mentioned before. We had a 24-track studio, and he was friends with these guys called the Latin Rascals.
Yeah.
They were producers. They were DJs in New York, but they were remixing the Bad album by Michael Jackson. They were supposed to do like the dance version because they were dance like remixers, as well as my friend, my ex-partner was Frank. And they said, well, we're not going to reduce. Could you guys do a couple of tunes? So they did Dirty Diana and Speed Demon off that record. And they wanted Frank to. And I was actually in the studio listening to Michael Jackson come through the speakers and through the headphones. And we just soloed his voice and listened to it for like 4 days. And it was like listening to God breathe. It was the talent of him breathing. He even breathed melodically in his
Yes, in time. I've got some of those. I've got the stem files. I've got all the soloed tracks and everything from Michael. I can play some of those. He is amazing.
Yeah,
he's one of those people they didn't use autotune. He just did it until he got it right.
I followed him though since I was a child. Yeah.
But you know who didn't was Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
I've heard his soloed tracks, and boy, that guy gets out of tune when he gets rolling. And they got a really
well. That could be the mix. It could be unfair. Unfair. Maybe he was drunk or something like that. I mean,
yep.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes down in the studio.
I was never a big Queen guy because that's just not my style of music. I mean, they were okay and everything.
I saw them live a couple times and they were phenomenal.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. A great.
But I had opportunities to see them, so I did, just like I did anybody else. They weren't.
Yeah.
By the time they came along, I was listening to Blow by Blow. And Mahavishnu Orchestra and Larry Coryell in the 11th House and
Al Di Meola, I'm sure you were there. Yeah.
Al Di Meola.
Oh yeah.
And Chick Corea. I mean,
God, Return to Forever.
That band was another one. But you know what's funny about that? I don't know if it's just my opinion, but that music doesn't seem to hold up to me. The Mahavishnu stuff and the Chick Corea stuff that I was so in love with. Now those songs seem like every song's an excuse to take a solo.
Yeah. All right, guys, we'll be back in just a few minutes for the last segment today. And, man, it's almost over. 3-hour show in the books. Be right back.
Is there anyone home?
Jumping right back into it. Welcome back to the show, guys. Snarky Puppy. We were just talking about jazz fusion legends in the last segment, and this is about the most modern equivalent I can find to jazz fusion legends. Snarky Puppy is just world class all the way.
Wait, what would you consider those guys? What kind of music would you consider those guys? Because I've seen them on playbills with some other bands.
Snarky Puppy, they're jazz fusion.
Right.
Jazz, pop, fusion, funk. They've got like their own.
Yeah.
They mash up a million different styles and make it their own.
See, back in the day, there would have been radio stations that actually did that. In New York, there was a station called WRVR, and then there was a light jazz station. At one time in New York City, there was a jazz station that was done very well, and a light jazz station, and that was all that mid-'70s like Diodato, and all that kind of soft jazz, and then you'd hear like Spyro Gyro and other bands on the jazz station.
Oh man, I was so hooked on Spyro Gyro. Oh yeah.
I was a good friend of mine, Richie Chevelino. Maybe he's listening. He's a good friend of mine. He played with Roberto Valli, who was the bass player for a bass player with Spyro Gyro. I mean, in those days there was actually a business. It was actually a business for fusion bands or jazz bands.
Sure.
These days, I mean, jazz. I mean, it's like it's
in clubs. You have to go see it in
and
person.
the musicians are getting paid.
Right.
I mean, unless they're somebody famous, but
Yeah.
it's to a point now where it's almost like you have to go to Europe even. Like,
Oh, yeah. I would love to tour Europe.
Yeah.
well, there's plenty of times that you can tour Europe. You ain't gonna make no money. I know a lot of bands that tour Europe and they come home broke.
Yeah.
See,
Oh,
I,
yeah,
see,
yeah,
I can't
yeah.
play that. When I go on tour, I got to make some money because I got mouths to feed.
Yeah.
I ain't going for that.
Right.
That well, you'll get
Yeah.
good exposure. I said,
Exposure box.
don't people die from exposure?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
I heard somebody
Pay the
died
bills.
from exposure on the Donner Pass. You know,
We've been kind of hitting on the new music industry throughout this whole show today, and one of the bands that Kathy and I work a lot with is a band called Home Free.
Yeah.
And they started. They're a completely a cappella band. There's
All vocal.
no instruments. It's
Yeah.
all vocals. And they started back in the early 2000s. They've been around for about 20 years. They didn't actually go anywhere, make it big until they hit The Voice.
The sing off.
The Sing Off, excuse me, on TV. And they got pegged. The producers of the show said, you guys are going to be a country a cappella band because there's no such thing. So that's going to be the gimmick. And from then on, they've been tagged as a country a cappella group. They ended up winning the Sing Off. They were offered a contract.
They
which,
took the
which
contract.
they took with Sony.
Yeah, Sony.
And the minute they could, they dumped that contract, and they've been independent ever since.
Right.
And these guys have really been trailblazers in trying to figure out how to create income on your own in this business.
Yes.
how the hell did they get out of the contract?
They bought him out.
They bought it, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you were talking about
Now
coming up with a
them
few
and all
million
their
dollars.
projects and collabs are most of the collabs are with independent, not
Independent
all,
artists,
but
yeah.
they got the Oak Ridge Boys and
They've got they
So-
pay for their distribution out of
Yeah.
their own pockets. They pay for pretty much everything out of their own pockets.
And the fans.
The fans.
Right.
That's the biggest thing about.
Patreon and-
Yeah, that's the biggest way that people are making money now is through the fans. The fans have become patrons of the arts. The fans actually support them on a monthly basis through subscriptions and tier levels and all kinds of things. You can subscribe to their behind the scenes Patreon deal for a couple of bucks, $5-10 a month.
Yeah, there's
And
different
you
tiers.
get access to music and things that hasn't been released yet.
Right.
But then there's tiers. They've got $25 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month, all the way up
Jeez.
to $5,000
I think
a month.
it's 5, maybe 3, but whatever they got, and
They're-
they offer different packages. Yeah.
Yeah, they offer different packages where you can actually, for the largest tier, you get free unlimited tickets to all their shows, backstage passes. You get to go sit
there's-
in on
yeah.
things, and there's a lot of really good perks that come
Yeah.
with it.
For $5,000 a month, I'm going to want somebody's kidney.
I'm telling you.
I think it's like 3, but still they
Yeah.
get. They tour a lot, so there's an opportunity to go to a lot of
lot
shows,
of
and
shows.
you get
Right.
the ultimate VIP package where you meet you hang
you
out
meet
with them.
and- yeah.
You got the first couple rows. We get the Q&As. We're going in 2 weeks actually.
Yeah, we'll be there in 2 weeks in
Our
Albuquerque.
third time. Yeah, they're amazing.
But yeah, I mean that's how people
But
are making
that's
money
how-
now.
yeah.
and this whole thing with
Having
YouTube,
YouTube.
especially. Oh boy.
Super chats and
Yeah, you don't you get. We were talking about Spotify with impressions. YouTube is even worse.
yeah.
You get a fraction of a penny, and every time somebody watches your song or your video or whatever.
Yeah,
It's horrible the way they do things nowadays.
yes, it is.
You get 3 million imprints, you can buy a cup of coffee.
Right.
But like I said, that's why there's these other things. Like you said earlier, Joey said merch. Merch is a big thing now.
Yeah, that's
I mean, that's where a lot of
That's-
bands are
yeah.
really making their bread and butter and staying in business because
Yep.
it is a business.
It
These
is,
bands are LLCs. They've got a business license to
Right.
do what they're doing.
That's the whole jam band circuit. I mean, I know friends of mine have played on the jam band circuit. They couldn't sell a record if nobody buys the records, but they go to their shows.
Right.
And they go for backstage passes, and they do
Yeah.
all this like access stuff. And
Grateful Dead is a good example of that. They
Well-
didn't sell a whole lot of records, but
No,
they sell
no,
out
that's
every-
right.
Oh, every show.
they
was
were
sold
probably
out.
like the imprint for that, the archetype for that.
the
Yeah.
biggest
Because it was-
jam band. Yeah.
And you know what's funny? A great story was I had a mechanic in New Jersey years ago. He was this old hippie dude, and he knew I was a musician. He's like, "What do you think of the Dead?" I was like, "I like Jerry Garcia's guitar player, but I'm not a fan of the band."
Yeah.
He goes, "You know what? I've got like 500 shows on cassette." He goes, If you hear them on a good night, I'm telling you, they are amazing. I said, okay, well, spin me onto a couple. I knew the guy for 5 years. He never gave me a cassette. and every time I tell him, I say, when are you going to give me that great cassette of the Dead Live? He goes, I'm still going to pick one out. I'm just listening through all of them. And so, so it was like kind of like the whole jam band thing. And I somewhat feel kind of funny for the artist because I've seen some of those jam band shows. They're really not paying attention. Yeah. They're kind of, there's a scene happening, and then when the band's going like, then everybody's like rapping and stuff. Then the band's like going, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, rah! They're responding not necessarily to the musicianship, they're responding to the dynamic level.
The dynamics, yes,
of what's happening on the stage. And of course, obviously, there's alleged narcotics involved or whatever. But
alleged.
Well, they tell people, hey, you want to record us tonight? Bring your stuff. Bring your stuff to the show. You can record us. They've always done that.
Right. And
they don't sell, many records, but man, they sell out everywhere they go.
Right. Which I think was, what I think. Look, I can't tell anybody what to do with their product, but it doesn't have a value. Your music doesn't have value if you're giving it away. I'm sorry. It's like when they talked about giving away free educations. Or somebody say to you, you know what? You're a nice person and you live and you know what? I'm going to give you a brand new Toyota Corolla. Now try to sell that Toyota Corolla in 3 years. You want $10,000 for a used Toyota Corolla, but you didn't pay anything for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I still don't understand that whole idea of giving your music away.
Right.
I just don't understand that. But then again, I've had to make a living of this. I got a family. I had kids. I had to put food on the table for my family.
Right.
I don't know. It seems like this business has become the playground of rich kids, guys whose wives have good jobs, or people with trust funds.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing. I can't believe I have friends of mine who, quote unquote, go on tour and they're not making 14 cents.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it. That's not a tour. That's a vacation where you play.
Yeah.
Well, see,
right?
that's like last time we were together, we did you were doing your band's practice, getting ready to go out on tour, and we live streamed it on social media. That was pretty much what my idea has been from the beginning, and now post-COVID especially, a lot of bands are doing this. They'll rent a studio.
Yeah.
They'll fill it full of cameras. They'll get a board mix going, and they'll stereo out to the internet, and they do virtual concerts. People pay per view to see virtual concerts.
Oh, yeah.
They get to sit in the comfort of their own home. They get to drink their beer and watch it on TV, go to the bathroom whenever they want.
They can sit and watch it naked.
And whatever they want. And they get pristine sound.
Mm-hmm.
I know, but that's a totally different experience than seeing a band live,
of course.
watching a guy break a string, seeing the guy sweating,
of course.
Seeing the sound man who didn't have a good night. That was also part of the experience.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell you how many times over the years I spoke to people and I was like, did you see Roger Waters when Eric Clapton played with him? He goes like, I saw him on the second night and the sound was really bad. I went back the third night and it was great. That was almost part of the experience.
Yeah.
It was almost part of how you could reference a show.
Sure.
But if everything's pristine, you're in your living room. I mean,
like I said, that's the new face.
There's no
that's
danger.
The new face.
No danger to it.
It's still it's another option.
There's no danger.
Yeah.
there's no sweat, no blood.
Yeah. No pressure.
Especially for people now who are afraid to go out in public and be around a lot of people, because of.
I'm not saying that I agree with the new.
No, it's just a different. It's a different whole
different
thing.
approach.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a different.
It's
a
another
different beast.
option.
Yeah. It's a way for bands to virtually tour and still get income without having
like
to.
Home Free, for instance. I mean, we've seen live videos; they're great, but going to the concert is a million times better. The experience. I love live shows. I mean, that's why I've been doing it for most of my life. But if you can't make it to a live show, then you have that option. Sure, why not? If you can,
and you're still seeing basically a live performance. Yeah.
$15, $20.
And there is something very magical about that. I remember one time I was auditioning for this room that I ended up getting back in Vermont, and the guy's wife who ran the room, owned the room, came over to me. She says, "I thought the band was great. I just thought it was a little too loud because I couldn't have a conversation while you guys were playing." I said, "I don't want anybody having a conversation when I'm playing." She was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I don't want anybody talking while I'm playing." And then the owner of the place came to me. He goes, "It was just a little too loud." I was like, "Good."
Yeah.
He's like, no, I'm telling you, it was a little too loud. I was like, that's what I'm going. Was it very much too loud?
Yeah.
He goes, no. I said, exactly.
Yeah.
Go see any guitar player, lead guitar player in a rock band. Is not an apologetic modality.
Right.
You're supposed to go out there and kick some ass.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the people tell me, Joey, the guitar's loud. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's not a Marshall. I'm playing through a deluxe, for God's sakes. I mean, it's not like I got a Marshall stack. I got a twin reverb in the car if you want me to really kill you.
Yeah.
But, it's that thing of, like, the live show. There's this exhilarating thing of, like, oh, my God, it's really loud. Your heart starts beating all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it should hurt your ears, but you should be physically challenged at some
or you
point.
can feel the bass.
Or
Yeah.
you could walk away from the stage if you want to get a little further back so you don't have to get bombarded with the guy's Marshall.
Yeah.
It's a choice you make. I don't know. Do you want anybody comfortable listening to your music?
Well, unless you're playing a lounge at a casino, that's hell right there.
No, you know what? I enjoy that. You know why? Because it's like a seduction to me. Walking into a casino and playing in a band like mine is almost like trying to rap to a girl who's not interested you
Trying
at
to
all.
seduce them away from the machines.
Yes, just a little bit. Just a little
Right.
bit. I know the casino's got to make money.
Yeah.
I don't want them saying Joey Leone
Right.
puts on his show and nobody gambles.
Yeah, and they don't like
I just
that.
want to
Yeah.
keep them in the chair longer.
Right.
I want them to buy that extra round. I want them to play that a little longer with me, seducing, going, wow, what is he playing?
You got to be good, but not too good.
Yeah.
In a casino, that is the truth. You have to realize when you take a gig at a casino, you have to understand the room. And
Yeah,
what they're,
you're
what
the
they're-
background music.
Maybe so, or maybe they want you to put on a show that's going to keep them in the casino for an extra hour. They may not want them saying
Right,
for 3
right.
sets.
Right.
And drinking too.
And drinking.
and having a couple of, one of the things years ago I got an email sent to me from in Killington. Now remember, I was the biggest act there. I've played there for 20 plus years, and one of the guys that was one of the vice presidents of the company sent me an email that he got from a complaint from the food and beverage person saying that Joey's people drink too much and they stay too long. I'm like, well, I guess I got to leave.
That's an
Where's
issue.
where's my leverage?
That's every promoter and club owner's
Right.
dream, We went through the 80s without having to sell tickets in Hollywood because our crowd drank the bar out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they would pay us a part of the bar.
Yeah,
We would
you
ask
take a
for that.
percentage.
Yeah, and that's when
Yeah.
there was actual commerce being done.
Right.
Now you can't drink, you can't talk to a girl, you can't ask them. People would ask me for hey man, could you do this song? Like people that are fans of mine, they'd be like, dude, I gotta leave. Could you play Comfortably Numb? I said, I can't play Comfortably Numb in the first set. Sorry, you're gonna have to put up with Glenn Campbell until the last set.
Well, guys,
Oh,
Yeah.
is that it?
I think we brought it right up to the very end there. Woo!
Wow.
Thank you.
All right,
was
another show in the books.
Yeah.
We will catch you next week for our 5-hour marathon.
Yeah.
Saturday afternoon starting at 1 p.m. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. I'm the dog.
Thanks
That's
for
Kat.
being here, guys.
Thank you very
good
much
night.
to Joey Leone.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Johnny.
Just turning on your radios
This is K-Talk.
to bring you up to date on the news.
This hour from townhall.com.